Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and you're very welcome to the Global Sales Leader podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. I'm a sales strategist, sales coach, sales trainer. I help deliver better results. Today is all about insightful leaders, insightful leadership, insightful sales leaders that have something slightly different, so something slightly that they can give back. And I'm very excited to speak with John. John, could you pronounce your surname? Because I'm probably going to say it all wrong, but if you'd like to pronounce your surname for me, they'd be grateful.
Sure, no problem. It's John Manzanares.
John Manzanares, thank you very much. And look, you were suggested to speak to by a mutual friend and someone that I've known for about 5 years, Ed Soho. So absolutely delighted to speak to you. He wouldn't refer me over to anyone that has something slightly different. So I'm really looking forward to this podcast with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Like, I'm going to give you a bit of blurb about yourself. I know you've been in 25 years in IT, information technology, and you got a sort of good accolade from an eclectic array of experience from lots of different companies. And now you're working in your executive vice president of information technology. So you've got lots and lots of good things about you. So chief information officer, partners with senior management, regular presents to board of directors, lots of good golden gems in there. So I'm sure you're going to tell a little bit more. I've just touched on a few points here, but you're on here just to say what you do and how you make an impact in the business that you actually operate in now and in the past. Could you give us a little bit of a few touch points of, I would normally say anchor points along the way, and describe what you do and how you got to where you are at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. Like you said, I'm a chief information officer, and that means I have responsibility for all of the technology, the applications that help support the business and their transformation. I'm really there to be a business leader first, and then a technology leader second in my role as the CIO. Right? It's all about driving IT and getting IT to be a business partner. And a lot of what I try to do in my role as their leader is to bring IT kind of out of that back office space to be part of the business so that they're speaking in business terms, not in IT terms, right? They're prioritizing and they're evaluating solutions based upon business impact, right? How do we create value or mitigate risk? And really driving all the way through to the voice of the customer and understanding what the business goals and objectives are. And so a lot of what I do is really trying to help connect IT and the business. We've talked for years about aligning IT and the business. There's no alignment. You are part of the business, right? And you need to understand that and prioritize things that way. So that's where I see my role as kind of that connector, communicator, encourager, that really kind of helps drive those solutions back to business objectives. It's about connecting people to technology, and helping, bringing those technology challenges to the forefront to help solve business problems. I started my career, undergraduate and graduate work in computer science. Started out doing applications development, rose up through the ranks through various companies and backgrounds. Had some opportunities to work in global organizations and do global implementations, working in supply chain and logistics, worked in financial services. I worked as the CIO of a trucking company in North America, where we did expedited freight movement across the US. And then most recently at a private equity owned company that did services and construction and engineering in the HVAC and refrigeration space. And throughout my career, I've loved learning about new businesses and bringing technology to help solve those business problems. So it really is around, how can I understand what's going on in the business? How can I make sure that my IT team understands that? Very often I'll run into people within my organization that may be working on a particular solution for a customer or for one of our end users within the organization, and they've never actually talked to or experienced what they're going through. And so what I've had to do in several cases is take my chief architect, take my chief lead developer, and bring them out of the office and say, let's go on a ride along with this truck driver. Let's go on a ride along with this technician out there. Let's experience what they're experiencing. How can you develop those platforms without understanding that? And really kind of help educate and bring the IT organization so that they understand what's the end game. What are we trying to do to achieve success in the business? Not implement technology for the sake of technology, but with an end result of driving value, driving creation of business opportunities.
So how have you actually pivoted right now? Because we've all been in this funny world for the last 12 months or near enough. But how have you pivoted as an organization to communicate a little bit more effectively around the organizations? Because there might not be the opportunities now to actually sit alongside these people or the employees anymore. But how have you worked with that now?
You know, that's a huge challenge, right? So in March, in mid-March, when everything was starting to hit, we sent 900 employees home in 3.5 days, getting them set up with laptops and desktops and monitors, getting them VPN access. And a lot of that had, the reason we were able to get that done is because we had prepared. So we already had a lot of folks who had laptops. We had a lot of folks who could enable and work from home, but it was a big challenge. And then once we got everybody home and secured and we sent my team home, then it became, how do we enable connectivity? Right? We already did a lot of video conferencing, but not nearly at the level that we've seen over this last year, right? And so how do we connect with people? How do we provide that technology? So full-blown implementation, getting everybody out there so they can stay connected, rolling out a collaboration platform so that they can do more than just video calls, but they can do chat, they can do sharing of documents and all of that. And but it still is challenging for managers to be able to manage that way, right? You're used to seeing people come into the office. You're used to dropping by and talking to them, or having them drop by your office, or seeing them at the coffee station or the water cooler, if you will, and having those impromptu, unplanned conversations.
Yep.
So this is requiring our managers, our leaders, to go out of their comfort zone and really kind of make time for those conversations in a different mode. And some of the things that I've communicated to my leadership is, don't just rely on these video calls, Zoom calls, for project meetings and status only. You need to have calls and reach out to your people and ask them how they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? You need to have that empathy. You need to have, this more than anything is requiring leaders to have empathy about the situation, about their family, how they're dealing with all of this. It's stressful. And you're going through that. And how do you as a leader step up to that and be more connected? And it's very much a challenge that we're all going through, and having to learn that new normal of how will we do that. It's challenging to create a relationship and build a relationship on video calls only.
I can understand that. And I literally read a book yesterday about success, and what is actually missing is a lot of the rapport and relationship building is done by the coffee machine or the water cooler or something like that. And that's being missed at the moment, because that is all part of success and how success means for the company and as a whole. So you suggested that that's a bit of a challenge, but how could you empathetically communicate a little bit better? But it's also back to yourselves as well, and your own empathy with your situation, because it's not only about the team, it's also about yourself. So how would you work with that?
Yeah, it really challenges you to exercise muscles you're not used to working with, right? You do a little of that, but it was a lot easier when you're seeing people face to face. I think that it's really been an opportunity throughout this time at home to do some self-reflection and some self-development around how do I become a better, more effective leader. These are skills that I was working on and needed to develop anyway, but now they've been heightened, and the urgency is much more there because of the remote, nature of our working environment. And how do I mentor and guide and coach, the leaders that I have and the future leaders on how to be more empathetic, how to have that EQ that really drives and makes you a good leader, and not just around driving towards tasks and success, but understanding the whole person. They talk about this whole idea of work-life balance. I, for a long time, have said it's not work-life balance. It's work-life integration. Some people during this time has said it's not working from home. It's sleeping at work, because people are spending entirely too much time sitting in front of the computer. They're not taking breaks. They're not setting that time frame. They're not having that discipline because they're not used to doing that. Right? So at work, there was a clear definition of start and a clear definition of end. And now you're working at home, that gets blurred.
Yeah. So how do you work with that? Because there is for me now, I'm on at 8 a.m. I'm switching on, and then I don't finish but I do have breaks during the day. But it is, I think in the first lockdown it was easier, but now everyone is sort of logging on early and finishing off late. So how do you manage that, and how do you communicate that back to people?
My own personal practice is to, once we started working at home, I still got up at the same time. I still got ready. I still did the same routine. And then I would go into my office and begin the day. Right? So you still need to have you need to develop a new routine of what you're going to do. I know I've read, some people said that instead of the commute, go for a walk around the block, right? So you're simulating that kind of leaving my personal life and going to the office. Now for me, I get up in the morning, throughout the course of this, I started meditating, which I found very helpful in terms of my awareness and focus, and focus on gratefulness throughout the day. And so I do that in the morning. I take the dog for a walk, and that was when I could listen to podcasts. Before, I used to do that on my commute into work, and then I lost that because I wasn't driving anywhere.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
right.
listen to the podcast while I walk the dog. I come back, I get my coffee ready, and then I come into the office so I can do my work. And it's around that kind of discipline. You want to schedule break times. You want to make sure that when you're working from home, that you do get up from time to time, go outside, if the weather is nice, and just be, to experience a little bit of a break. Your mind needs to have that break time. You cannot stay focused for that extreme period of time without getting fatigued, especially for Zoom calls. If you have to set up and you get fatigued for being on video calls. I'm on video calls all day, it seems like. And so you really kind of have to have that downtime, and it's really around that routine.
So that's I applaud you for doing the meditation part, because I do that, and I've been doing that for about 5-6 years. I haven't been practicing every day, but it's a good thing to silence the mind in a way, and I like that. And how are your team working with that? And are they practicing things like you've suggested, or are they taking their own practices, or whatever?
I don't know if I've necessarily converted anybody over to meditate. I've had a few people ask questions about it, and I've pointed to some good practices that at least I like to do. Like anything, to create a habit is going to make you more successful at getting it done. And how do you create that habit? Is you have to take those tiny steps, right? So for me, I had to connect it to another habit I already had in the morning. So I needed to make sure that was the first thing I did. If I didn't have a specific time I was going to do it, then other things might come up and I might miss it. So how do I create that habit in the morning so that I can go do that? And then, the app helps me with tracking my progress. So then that kind of drives me as well, because if you can measure it, then you can perform better at it. So I know how many of these sessions I've been able to do, how many days in a row, how many minutes, how many sessions. That just helps drive you with those kind of personal measuring your performance, measuring your success. But the other parts of it around my team is just you as a leader have to repeat yourself. You have to continually remind them of the message. Talk to them about their people, talk to them about the culture, talk to them about the environment that you're working in and the challenges that you're having. So you need to you need to remind them of that. As a leader, that's one of the jobs that you need to do is, continue to repeat yourself so that people can listen to that and they can get it. What is it? I think the rule of you have to repeat yourself 7 times before someone's actually going to hear it. You need to continually do that. And so even when I have my one-on-ones, I usually start off with how are you doing as an individual, right? How's your family? How are your kids? How are you dealing with being at home? Don't jump right into, projects and tasks and objectives and all of that. You'll get to that and remind them to do that with their people, and just those little kind of reminders help them to go, yeah, you're right. I haven't had one-on-ones with my people, or I haven't had this, or I haven't had that. And one of the other things that we did is we would implement a Friday call with the whole team, and we would do something fun. Maybe we would dress up like our favorite sports team, or we put a virtual background on from maybe our hometown, or we talk about a job we had maybe in college or in high school, or we just had things that were unworked just to kind of get that interaction going with the team, building that rapport.
That's a really good way of doing that. Yeah, I like that because I know that works, and it's just a sort of a relaxed approach because you need that. You need that interactivity. You need that view of doing something slightly different to the norm rather than work. The question I was going to ask actually is, how do you view success? How do you view success within the organization that you're working with and maybe outside the organization? How do you see that?
Yeah. I think success in the organization has to be driven back to the value you create within the business, right? At the end of the day, the business is there to achieve results. And so you really have to look at how are you driving everything you do towards the creation of that value for the business or mitigating risk. Those are all part of that. And measuring those things so that you can then, identify those success factors within your team, and then communicating that back down through your team so that they understand, what is success? How do we make progress? How do we create that value for the business? At a more personal level, it's around the culture and it's around creating great teams. Because at the end of the day, as a leader, I'm not doing the blocking and tackling every day, right? My team is. And how do I motivate? How do I drive them? How do I create that culture where they can feel like they're valued, that they have opportunities to grow and learn, they can develop their own mastery, and they have that sense of well-being within the organization and that they're doing great things. Nobody wants to work in an environment where you're just there to earn the money. It's not about money. That's important for your subsistence as a person and creating for your family. But at the end of the day, you want to feel like there's a sense of success in what you've achieved, and so really kind of laying that foundation and giving them an opportunity so that they can be successful in their own endeavors. And a lot of times that has to do with giving them opportunity to grow, right? Giving them training opportunities, allowing them to try new things, giving them an environment where they have an opportunity to promote, to grow within their career. So how can they get to the next level? How are we providing them with that connectedness? And then how are we providing that culture that they want to come to, that they look forward to, that the people, you spend a lot of time with the folks you're working with, and you want to have good connectedness there.
Yeah. There has to be that connection. There has to be that relationship being built. Because it's you're speaking to your, I wouldn't say they're friends, the employees, but you also speak to them like their partner as well in business, because you've got to work together in the best way possible. So what do you think, sort of outside of the company, what do you think people are actually facing? What do you think the main sort of problems that people are facing, and how are you implementing sort of solving that for other companies, the challenges that they might have? So using your products and services, how are you impacting on them in the value statement?
Well, I think a lot of the challenges we're having today is around connectedness. Right? How do we stay connected? How do we work together? How do we drive kind of that ecosystem, that the society that we're trying to work within, and having a better, appreciation for other people's challenges, difficulties, and perspectives. And so for me, a lot of that is both in the office as well as outside in my networking opportunities, is connecting with people and helping to connect people to other people, right? So you mentioned how Ed connected us. To me, I really find fulfillment in helping others, meeting with others, and helping them connect. And so it's really around that network of, solution providers or peers or people that you just get a chance to meet with. You never know what you're going to get out of some of those connections.
Agree.
But they're always so well worth it. And for me, the way I approach those connecting opportunities is, how can I give back? How can I help that person on the other side of the call, on the other side of that camera, to be able to help them with a connection within their business, or a connection to another lead, or a potential employee, or potential employer?
The question I was actually going to ask, just so, because it's all about feeding forward and giving golden nuggets of bits of information. How do you network, and what are the tips do you have out there so you can effectively network outside the organization, but on the business context? Because we're connected now, which is great and wonderful, and Ed connected us, so that's brilliant. So I just want to know how you do it at your end, if you have any golden gems there that the listeners can utilize there.
Sure. Yeah. So how did this all start for me? 13 years ago, I found myself in transition. And it was the first time I was really in transition of not going from one job to another job. And in the course of going through my outplacement services that my company gave me, I realized I didn't have much of a network. I had people that I worked with that I kind of connected with, but I wasn't really, developing that network of peers and colleagues and friends and working on that. So I started developing that then. And one of the things I learned is that the value of that network goes far beyond just finding that job, but it's really kind of that human interaction and how we can all help each other.
Yeah.
I know Keith Ferrazzi has written a book that I've got on my list to read here. It talks about co-elevation and how we can co-elevate each other within kind of that networking space. And so for me, I started doing networking. I joined the Society for Information Management, which is a organization in North America made up of chapters of IT leaders, kind of really getting together. And our value proposition is networking by far. That's our biggest value. We also do a lot of educational events and giving back to the community. And so I got on the board. I started networking with those folks. We have close to 5,000 members in the United States and Canada. I'm in the Southern California chapter. I got onto the board there way back early, 13 years ago. And we've grown that chapter. We have close to 300 members now, which are IT leaders across Southern California. And so that's one aspect of my networking, and that's a huge value that I bring with me wherever I go, because as the top IT leader in my corporation, when I have an IT challenge, a technology challenge, I can't turn to my peers and ask the CEO or the CFO or the VP of sales, what do you think, or have you run into this before? But what I can do is reach out to my peers or other CIOs, whether they're working in a similar industry or a very different industry. We all have a lot of the same problems. And so how do you connect with them? There's a ready-made group of folks that I can reach out to get a reference, to recommend software, to recommend hardware, to recommend vendors and management service providers to help me with my solutions. And so that's one aspect of my networking. but also, I still continue to network in groups of IT leaders as well as other business leaders, because it gives me a broad understanding of what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on in their businesses, what's going on with them. Very often the solutions that you're looking for in your business, in your industry, have already been solved in another business, in another industry.
Yeah.
You can go and find those solutions and bring them forward, whether it's, in automotive or aerospace or government or whatever that might be. You can bring those solutions. And how do you stay on top of this? As an IT leader, you're constantly on that treadmill of new things.
Yeah.
How do you stay educated? How do you learn about the new things that are out there? A big part of that for me is my network.
I was going to say, actually, the network is one of the most important things that you can have, because it's a softer way to speak to people. You're not selling to people. All you're doing is you're creating that area of trust, but mutual respect. Yeah. And it also raises your game as well, because you want to network with the right people, share the knowledge and the collective knowledge, because the way I look at it, we don't know everything. And if you probably go down to your CEO or whoever and ask them what that is, you probably don't look like you're the person of authority. Like you should. You're probably assumed that you know of everything. But I think sharing that collective network is absolutely incredibly important for your organizations and other organizations. So it's a really good tip there. Like that.
Absolutely. And, as I've been working through and building my network and staying very active in connecting with people, the thing that occurs to me about this is the same muscles, the same skill set that you need to do within your company.
Yeah.
Right. You need to be connecting with your peers. You need to be networking with people in other departments. As an IT leader, I have to work across all of the silos, all of the departments.
Yeah.
I need to have that connectedness with them, and I need to be able to be influence them, right? And I love that definition of influence is caring about the other person more than yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? So how can you establish that real connection? You need to network with them just like you would networking at a networking event or having a virtual coffee with somebody or sitting down with somebody for happy hour or whatever. It's the same kind of thing with the people within your organization. It's about establishing those relationships so that they can feel like there's a connection of trust there, so that you have each other's back and that you're there to help solve problems and help provide solutions for them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I totally agree. I think that's probably the better way of actually dealing with sort of complex situations, but in a sort of a way that people understand, and using, I would say influence, but natural storytelling and understanding the other person, and also jumping into their shoes, which is really a cool thing to do, rather than sticking in your own head, because sometimes that we all do that. So if you had some golden nuggets of sort of knowledge that you can give back to people, what would they be and what would they look like?
I think what you have to do is, especially as an IT leader, right? We come up through this being technologists and we interact with our computer screens more than we interact with people. And so as you rise up in the ranks of IT, you have to develop those skills to be more connected, be a more effective communicator. Sales may not be my title, but we're all in sales. We all have to make those connections. We all have to develop those relationships. Those are muscles that you have to do by practice, right? And you have to push yourself outside of that comfort zone to do that in some cases, because as a technology leader, you feel more comfortable talking with your technology people in technology language that you have, and you don't get yourself outside of that. So you really, building that connection, building those networks, and networking is a great opportunity to kind of hone those skills and flex those muscles by meeting with people and just and you need to be curious, right? Ask the questions, get to know people, be grateful for the time that they're sharing for you, but be there in the moment and listen to what they're saying and get their perspective. And so those are some of the things that I've tried to develop throughout my career and I would absolutely recommend to the up and coming leaders, and really anybody who wants to influence and connect with people, is you have to work at that. You know, a lot of times, you know, it's like your relationship, your marriage, right? Marriage is not something you just do and now you're married forever. You have to continually work at your relationship. Well, it's the same thing you have to do with relationships at work and relationships in your network. You have to work at that. You don't just have that one-time meeting and you're all good, or you went and had lunch with somebody, or you had coffee and now your network is built. It's a continual thing. You have to work with people.
I totally agree. And that is such a wise thing that you can give back as a gift to people, because I always believe in that. Relationships are so important. And that's one thing that I work on a lot myself, because you just don't know. The way I look at it, you just don't know, because something might happen down the line and you might need to speak to that person and go, look, could you either get advice on that, or whatever it might be. So you can throw a whole load of questions. The question I was going to ask you actually is probably slightly outside of what we've been speaking about, but I like to ask this to everyone because it throws them off the track. If you had a superpower for 5 minutes, and you were based on a movie I saw last year on Netflix, but you're given this pill and it gave you this superpower, how would you use it and what would you use it for? You only have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. 5 minutes is not a lot of time.
No, it's not.
Gosh, I'll tell you the thing I would love for, if I could give everybody the opportunity during those 5 minutes to be more grateful and practice gratitude. I think that would shape a lot of people's perspective of where we are today with the social unrest, with the challenges that we're having, well, especially in this country now, and the turmoil and the political separation that we're going through. Just having those 5 minutes of gratitude, I think, would really help people's perspectives.
Love that. That's a really good answer. And Chester Elton, who I interviewed a while back, he said exactly the same. Live with gratitude for what you have and what you are, but also with other people. It's also empathy if you look at it from that point of view. But I think that's absolutely awesome. Could you, just to wrap up, can you tell people how they can find out more about you?
Sure. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think that's a great platform to help build your network and stay connected to your network. So you can find me on there. It's LinkedIn/IN. My extension is J Manzanares, so it's my first initial and last name. You'll have to look it up on the podcast here to spell it. But happy to connect with you on that. You can also reach me through my email. It's john.manzanares@gmail.com. And I'm happy to connect with you and have a virtual coffee and help you with your journey in life and connecting with other people.
Awesome. That is really good. And that's why I like to interview US leaders, because they're so open to grab a coffee and just share knowledge and turn the phone. I've done it many a time, so appreciate that. So you listen to the Global Sales Leader podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. John, I really appreciate your time. I say your morning, my evening, and 8-9 hours apart. But if you like what you hear, please share it on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes is the most popular one, apparently. I'm on Android myself, but please like it and share it. Be very much appreciative. Thank you very much again, John.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Have a good evening.